Good afternoon, Dolphins fans. Welcome to another episode here of On the FinSide with Kat and Paul. Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, all of our social media outlets, as well as the FanSided Network and FinFanatic.com. I'm Brian, Kat NFL. Paul is Fanatic_pick on Twitter. Well, Paul, massive week here. The Dolphins are 2-0. The Bills are 2-0. It's the only 2-0 matchup of the week. And just looking back historically, I mean, I've been a Dolphins fan for 25 to 30 years now. And I can say with a pretty straight face that this might be the most talented Bills Dolphins matchup I've seen really. I mean, at least in the last 20 years. You look at it, I mean, we went from Kelly to Marino to Sage Rosenfels throwing a last second touchdown to Chris Chambers to beat the JP Lossman led Bills back in 2005 or something, was it? But this is big. And if you look at the power rankings, you're going to see the Dolphins 5 through 8 in all of them. You're going to see the Bills number 1 in all of them. But can you remember when's the last time you saw a matchup as talented as this between the Bills and the Dolphins?
It's been a while. We might be going back to the Marino Kelly era. But what I would say too is, as talented of a matchup as this one is, the one later in the year might be even more talented depending upon health and rosters at that point.
Yeah, that's a good point. And that's really a major storyline heading into this game is the Bills defense. A lot of injuries over there. I mean, Tre'Davious White's been out all year. He's on PUP, one of the best cornerbacks in the league. They're also going to be without Pro Bowl safety Micah Hyde. They're also not going to have Dane Jackson, who had that really scary moment last week. He started the first 2 games for them. Has been a very underrated player. And last night we heard Ed Oliver and Jordan Phillips, both defensive tackles, are going to be out. I mean, I look at this matchup and say, Tua's got to outduel Josh Allen in this game.
He does. And Tim Settle is nursing an injury as well, the talented defensive tackle that they signed from Washington this offseason. I mean, Gregory Rousseau, Boogie Basham, which breaks my heart, Von Miller, AJ Epinesa, they can still rush you off the edge. But not having Ed Oliver and Jordan Phillips helps Tua a great deal, especially with his pocket presence that we've seen from him thus far this season, because those two in particular push the pocket upfield, which sets the table for those defensive ends to tee off around the edge. And with those two off the field, that sets Tua up to be able to step up. And quite frankly, if Jordan Poyer doesn't play, they won't be starting a single member of what should be their starting secondary in this game. And if Jordan Poyer does play, he's going to be nursing an injury. And we all saw what Tyreek and Waddle can do along with the rest of the cast against a depleted secondary last weekend. Right.
I'm with you on that. And yeah, the defensive tackles will be Daquan Jones and Tim Settle, more big body types. Settle had a handful of sacks with Washington a few years ago, but really more known to be run stoppers. At least that's my understanding of him. Jordan Phillips, we saw had a sack and a half in the first game against the Rams. And he's always been a player. I mean, hard to believe he's going into his eighth year in the NFL now. He's always been a player that he could show up and he could completely destroy the interior of an offensive line, or he could get 3 penalties and get ejected. You never know where he's going to be. But looking outside of the game, I got to say that I've been a Dolphins fan. I think my first year was when I was a little kid, 1994. It's never been cool to be a Dolphins fan here in St. Louis, until this week. This, like, people would just in grocery stores, getting my oil changed, et cetera. People would come up to me and say, "Oh, just when making small talk, they're like, oh, you're a Dolphins fan," almost like they're offering their condolences to me. How'd you become a Dolphins fan? Oh, okay. This week they see the Dolphins hat and the Dolphins shirt, and it's like, wow, did you see that game last week? I'm like, oh man, you must be in a good mood today. I mean, it's actually cool to be a Dolphins fan. I know that's not very analytical, but first time in my life, I got to say.
Well, the cool part for me is being up here in New England. You get a lot of Patriots fans that not only, you get some that do the whole like, wow, that game was amazing. But then you also get a lot of very somber, hey, Dolphins are looking pretty good, huh?
Yep.
And to get that from a Patriots fan, good Lord, it's been a while on that front.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. And it's a special week here, man, because ever since the schedule was announced on May 12th, I don't think we've done a show without me saying that after 4 games, the Dolphins need to be at least 2-2. Well, they're there. They've done it. Even if they get blown out the next 2 games, it would be a huge disappointment. But I would still feel like overall the season is still on the right tracks. Okay. So much would have to happen in this game for me to come out thinking that the Dolphins are not on the right track anymore. It would have to be, I mean, I don't even want to think about it. But the reason for it is I mean, in a span of 4 or 5 days, they're playing the Bills and they're playing the Bengals. You even win one of those games and you're 3-1. The quarterbacks the Dolphins are going to face after that. I mean, I've got to go down the list here. Darn, I don't have it right in front of me. Oh, no. Here are the 8 quarterbacks the Dolphins are going to face after Thursday between September 30th and December 10th. All right. Zach Wilson, Kirk Cousins, who's by far the best on the list. Kenny Pickett, Jared Goff, Justin Fields, Jacoby Brissett, Davis Mills, and Jimmy Garoppolo. My point is, this is a defense that feasts on average to below average quarterbacks. If the Dolphins start 3-1 here, I'm looking at this schedule and thinking 9-3 or 10-2 is a possibility. I'm starting to see, I can look ahead as far as I want. I mean, it's crazy. I mean, if things get special, if the Dolphins win this game.
Yeah, no, they do. They absolutely do. And again, you want to talk about being taken seriously. The excuses will come out. But I mean, the excuses will come out based on the injury list. But in reality, if you can stop Buffalo's defensive ends or at least slow them down, or if you look at the beginning of last year, actually block them, if the offensive line can continue to hold up, and really on their offense, it's not so much Josh Allen you need to contain, it's Stephon Diggs. You contain Stephon Diggs, no one else has over 100 receiving yards on the season on their roster. It's their running game hasn't really gotten off to a huge start. And after Stephon Diggs and his 20 receptions, their leading receiver was Gabe Davis, who's out. So then it's Isaiah McKenzie with 4 receptions for 56 yards.
Right. To me, it's Allen that you got to worry about the most. When I see Josh Allen, I see the best player in the NFL and on the best team in the NFL. That's just the reality of the situation here. You look at the Bills in their last 13 games, they have scored 27 or more points in 12 of those 13 games dating back to last year. The only one that they didn't was the Mac Jones 3-pass game, where it was like 30-mile-an-hour winds. No, not even Josh Allen could fight their way through that. In those 13 games, the Bills' last 13 games, they've scored 41 or more points in 5 of those 13. So when I look at this, I don't see any other way around it. You either score 35 to 40 points against the Bills, which is no easy task. I don't care who they have in the secondary, or you're not winning the game. That's what it comes down to. That's what kind of opponent we're dealing with here. And it sucks that they're in our division.
Hey, Kat, real quick, Gabe Davis, I thought he was already declared out for this game.
No, he's playing. I was gonna get to that. He's playing. He had 88 yards in week 1, and that's going to be a big return for them.
Oh yeah.
So especially with Byron Jones still out another 2 weeks, and Xavier Howard should play. All indications are that he's going to play, but he didn't look the same last week. So that's also concerning.
Yeah, no, just curiosity, because I mean, like you said, he had the 4 receptions for 88 in week 1. But again, it's Stephon Diggs is the biggest and baddest threat on that entire offense right now. I understand Josh Allen is a great player and possibly the best in the NFL right now. But again, it's with what he has, you haven't seen that ball distributed around very much, despite the amount of times that they're throwing the ball. It's been predominantly the Stephon Diggs show for the Bills thus far.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think he did. I think he has distributed it very well. I just don't think you have a lot of receivers outside of Diggs who are putting up the big numbers. I mean, Reggie Gilliam had the touchdown catch last week. Jake Kumaro had a big catch. McKenzie, 30 yards or 28 yards a game over the last 2 games. So, I mean, I understand your point. They don't have a major weapon to be fearful of outside of Diggs and outside of Gabe Davis. But then again, I would say Johnny Knox is a pretty good receiving tight end too. So it's
Dawson
a talented.
Knox.
Who did I say?
Johnny Knox.
Johnny Knox. That's a former Bears receiver. Dawson Knox.
All I could think was Welcome to Jackass.
Oh, yeah, Johnny Knox.
Knox.
But yeah, Dawson Knox is also a talented receiving tight end. So,
but he's nursing an injury.
He is too. The Bills are hurt all over the place, and but my point is, and I keep going back to, you're not going to get around. The Bills are going to put up points on you. Yeah. It's just going to happen. It's not anything to be ashamed about, because this is a team that has averaged in their last 12 games over 35 points a game, and they rarely, if ever, score below 30. So that's where the game falls on Tua. That also brings up a really special possibility too, that after Tua's game last week, 6 touchdowns, 459 yards passing or whatever it was, you outduel Josh Allen, you win a 35-30 or 38-35 game. I don't care who the Bills have in their secondary. Tua and the Dolphins are the talk of the 2022 season.
They are. It's end of the day. Tua comes out and throws 4 or 5 touchdowns in this game. How do you not get off the Tua bashing bandwagon if you're on it? I just don't see it.
Yeah, I mean, it was crazy what we saw last week, and seeing the team respond the way that they did is also incredible. Which is going to make what I'm about to say anger a lot of Dolphins fans here, because I'm going to bring up some bad memories. It's just in our DNA as Dolphins fans to think when things are going this well that the other shoe's eventually going to fall. I look back at it just in the last 10 years. I mean, in 2013, the Dolphins started 3-0, and with an improbable win over the Falcons, where they were losing by 10 points the whole game. The Falcons were 13-3 the year before. They won that game, and then Monday Night Football comes up, and they get absolutely trounced by the Saints by 3 touchdowns. Then 2018, the Dolphins and Adam Gase's last year, they start off 3-0 with that. The last one being that come from behind win over the Raiders, and the Jakeem Grant, Albert Wilson high five game. And then the following week, they lose 38-7 to the Patriots. So I bring that up to show that this is also historically an opportunity for the Dolphins to show this 2022 team is different.
It is. And one thing that's being debated slightly in the chat right now that I'll bring up is the Dolphins. If the Dolphins lose like a 38-35 shootout, like you were talking about possibly winning, they can still change the narrative, even if they lose, but they play really well, and it's a dogfight that the Bills happen to come out in front on. They can absolutely change the narrative there, because this isn't the ass whipping we've got from the Bills over the past few years, if that's the case. And if they look good, if Tua's hitting receivers and the Bills just happen to be the ones that come out on top, that still makes it anybody's ball game next time.
Hey, and thanks in the chat for the heads up about my mic level there. We depend on you all for that, because we can't hear it till after the show. So I just adjusted that. Give me some feedback in the chat. Let me know if that sounds a little bit better for you. Yeah, I mean, and offensively, you heard before the Bills started playing the Titans, you heard the Tua sucks chant loud and clear. And they also said Brady sucks. So, and I don't really think you can put too much weight into that. But if you're a Bills fan, you mean it, because Tua has not done well against the Bills. I mean, you look at just the last, just last year, the Dolphins scored 11 points against Buffalo to drop to 1-7. And that's when they turned the season around. They lost 35-0 in a game where Tua got injured on the first drive. The year before that, the Dolphins got blown out in that last game of the year where Tua was quarterback. I'd argue a lot of that wasn't his fault, but he's got an opportunity to really do something incredible here. And he'll be going up against two rookie cornerbacks, Kyer Elam, the first-round pick out of Florida, and also a sixth-round pick out of Villanova named Christian Benford. So you've got that, and then the safety in the secondary, you've got Micah Hyde out with an injury on IR just of today, and Jaquan Johnson, only one career start, former Miami Hurricane sixth-round pick, is going to be taking his spot. So tough miss. That's a tough matchup to be two rookie cornerbacks there.
Yeah, and I mean, you look at what Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle were able to do against two experienced cornerbacks last week. I mean, nursing injuries or no, Marcus Peters and oh God, I'm drawing a blank right now.
Marlon Humphrey
are two pretty damn good cornerbacks. So these guys are going to have their work cut out for them, especially if Tyreek and Waddle get rolling with each other. Now, the interesting thing will be, I don't know if we've seen a declaration yet. Cedric Wilson may or may not play in this one. So we might see the season debut of one Mr. Eric Ezukanma in this game potentially.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, if Wilson doesn't play, that's likely to happen. Will it be interesting to see if River Craycraft gets promoted again to the active roster? It would be the last time that he would be able to, and I would imagine at that point that they would just keep him on the active roster. We'll see. Another big part of the puzzle here is Teron Armstead is questionable with a toe injury. I also expect him to play. It's the same toe injury from last week, and he was out of practice all week, but he's also somebody that can roll out of bed and play left tackle. We saw that. He didn't practice last week. He goes up against the Ravens. Phenomenal job. He's been a great addition here at the left tackle spot. Until I see the inactive list come out at hour and a half before the game, I'm going to be sweating bullets on that one, because Greg Little has played very well at right tackle. And when you have Armstead at left tackle and Little at right tackle, that's what's needed in this game. Because like you said, the Bills may be hurting at cornerback and defensive tackle, but at defensive end, they are stacked with pass rushers.
Yeah, and the interesting thing too, and this is something that we saw it on Twitter, was Tyreek Hill. I want to go back to the receivers real quick. Tyreek Hill put on a show against this Bills secondary several times in the past when they had Micah Hyde, when they had Tre'Davious White, when they had Jordan Poyer all out on the field together. So it could be very interesting to see if they're seeing ghosts with Tyreek and over dedicate to him and let Waddle feast a little bit in the first half.
Yeah, I mean, I think we saw a lot of that against the Ravens in the first quarter last week. I mean, he had 85 yards in the first quarter. I mean, yeah, it's not even an option to just go one-on-one with these receivers all game. And that just opens up so many other possibilities. I also love too offensively that after two games, the Dolphins are using pre-snap motion more than any other team in the league. We talked about that in the offseason. It's something we want to see on every play. And Mike McDaniel is bringing it to us. And when you do that, I mean, it opens up so many more possibilities as we've seen here over the first two games. For the Bills defensively, going back on Micah Hyde, and if you look at the Bills defense with Leslie Frazier, it is a zone defense. I mean, there's very little man-to-man. So the safeties play such a big part of that. And if you look at Hyde and you look at Poyer, in the last 4 or 5 years, Hyde has missed one game and Jordan Poyer has missed one game. So you're talking about Hyde being out for the year now, and Jordan Poyer not a lock to play. And even if he does, he's got a foot injury. So that's going to change a lot of things on the defensive side of the ball here. Just a quote from James Foster from A to Z Sports. He said, Leslie Frazier's defensive philosophy is centered around disguising coverages and inhibiting a quarterback's ability to read a defense. Buffalo lines up in too high shell, but post-snap, they rotate the coverage into something completely different. Well, you may not be able to get that cute before the snap.
Yeah, and I just want to, while we're talking about injuries, I was just taking a peek around to see if there's any latest news on Jordan Poyer. One interesting bit of news that I just saw that happened since we've been on the air here is for the Titans, Taylor Lewan is out for the year.
Uh-huh.
So
You've always had an axe to grind against Taylor Lewan. I always thought it was the weirdest thing. I'm like, that's really random to do that. See, I thought you were breaking some big news here, and
No. I'm still trying to look up some stuff on Poyer.
You're just giddy for some reason over Taylor Lewan's unhappiness.
Well, that's the Titans are already on life support as far as the playoffs go here after week 2, but
you're right, and I'm sorry. Go ahead.
It's seeing that's just like a death knell for them at this point. Like,
well, that's a good. I'm glad you brought that up though, actually, because yeah, I mean, you look at the AFC. It's not just that the Dolphins are 2-0. AFC doesn't look so scary anymore compared to what we were talking about before the year. I mean, the Colts play the Chiefs this week. They're probably going to be 0-2-1. The loser of the Raiders-Titans game falls to 0-3, and I don't see either team having the firepower to come back from that. I think both teams are going to be left out of the playoffs when it's all said and done. The Steelers and the Patriots look very average at best. Russell Wilson's off to a slow start, 16 points in each of the last 2 games. Justin Herbert now has torn rib cartilage. We'll see how that impacts the rest of the year. And rib cartilage, I don't like to get too deep into the weeds as far as medical stuff, but Matt Hasselbeck was talking about that he had it and not as severe as Herbert does. And he said that it's worse than a broken rib because you're constantly contorting your body to try to get enough velocity on the football. And when you're twisting, you're pulling on that cartilage. So, yeah, I mean,
and by Dolphins, the way, the NFL account just put out the sexiest hype poster for the Dolphins Buffalo game. It's actually pretty sweet with Tua, Josh Allen, Tyreek, etc. on there. It's pretty.
It's a fun game. I mean, you're talking about the top 3 receivers in the NFL in yards playing in this very game: Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle, Stephon Diggs. And with Tyreek Hill, I posted this on Twitter earlier in the week. Tyreek Hill, if he averaged 4 catches for 48 yards a game, every game for the rest of the year, he would finish the season with 79 catches for over 1,000 yards. That's how good of a start he's gotten off to this year. And it's not even an option, like I said, to cover him one-on-one. And in the chat, Buffalo Sports, thanks for joining us here, as well as, don't sleep on Kyer Elam and Christian Benford. They might be rookies, but especially Benford, he's playing like a veteran. So there's, we certainly can't overlook him.
And we also just got asked in the chat. I can't answer you on Channing Tindall for this week. It's the Dolphins went through a lot of linebackers in last week's game as far as defending the Ravens go, but Cater Kohu, you'll absolutely see Cater in this game, in my opinion. He got a lot of significant snaps last week, as did Keon Crossan. So those are 2 guys I think you'll see a decent amount of in this game, especially given the passing prowess of Josh Allen and Cater Kohu being a very sure tackler. Is highly beneficial to have on that boundary in case Josh Allen squeaks through.
Yeah, and we didn't talk about it last week, but Cater Kohu actually, I mean, Nick Needham was benched late in the second half, and I understand why too. I mean, it's very simple: speed. I mean, Cater Kohu is much, much faster, and you're playing Lamar Jackson. It's that simple. I mean, so
you remember how much time I dedicated to Cater Kohu after the undrafted rookies were signed, and even in some of our preview shows back in June.
Yep,
this dude is the real deal.
We're very excited about him, and you were more so. And whether you like PFF or not, or however you want to slice that up. See, PFF to me it's
a tool.
It's a tool. If you use it like this quarterback's ranked 25th, this one's 40th. That's that. I don't like that. But when Cater Kohu is ranked 3rd by PFF in the entire league, it's pretty safe to say that he's playing pretty well. If it's clear that if any Dolphin is in the top 10 or the bottom 10, it's pretty safe to assume they're either having a really good year or a really bad year. I've never seen it be opposite than that, but yeah, it's a tool. It's a resource, like you said.
Where PFF gets super sketchy is offensive line grading. because they don't have true meaningful statistics to put in play for anything other than bad things for the most part.
Well, I think the bad things too are valuable to take
they
a look
are,
at.
but there needs to be the balance there. And it doesn't take into account some of the eye test factors that are important as well, as far as some of the things going on. Like, oh yeah, he allowed pressures, but granted, the quarterback held the ball for 6 seconds. It's
For me, it's cornerback, and really, I mean, really back seven in general, because if a receiver catches the ball between a cornerback and a safety, how do you know whose fault it is? And if they don't count it. And it's like, we got a lot of those plays. I remember back in 2017, Xavier Howard held Julio Jones to like 5 catches for 42 yards in that upset win that year. And then I looked at the grade, and the grade was like really low. And turns out they charged him with Marvin Hall's 60-yard touchdown. Nate Allen said himself after the game that was his fault. The coaches said it was Nate Allen's fault. So that changed the whole grade. So anyway, I'm getting off on tangent there. It's a very good resource, but when you use it as the Bible, that can get dangerous there. So looking at a few of these other matchups here too, I'm interested to see offensively. Well, for the Bills keep both linebackers on the field, Matt Milano and Tremaine Edmonds on the field every play, period. They play no dime defense. They play no quarter. They play 2 linebackers. I'm interested to see in this game if the Dolphins say, you know what, you want to do that? Okay, we're gonna go shotgun every play. We're gonna put Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle, Mike Gesicki, Chase Edmonds, and name another receiver, our running back, our tight end on the field, and we're gonna say, okay,
Raheem Mostert.
Yeah,
I mean, they had the 2 of them on the field for a lot of snaps last week.
Yeah, so let's say Mostert. You would say that, like, okay, we're going to get you in a situation where Matt Milano is going to have to run up and down the field with either Mike Gesicki or Jalen Waddle. And so if you want to play with 2 linebackers, you don't want to play a dime defense, then good luck.
Well, and on top of that as well, it'll be interesting to see as the game wears on, because one of the ways that the Dolphins set themselves up for success last week was using next gen stats. The Ravens secondary ran a ridiculous like 6,131 yards or somewhere in that neighborhood during that game. And they were dogged out, tired, and whooped from how much they had to run based on, the shifts, the motions, the speed of the Dolphins receivers and the handoffs and things like that. Like, it was insane. And if Miami can do that to what is not a deep secondary right now, and really just put them on skates and put them hands on knees at the end of the game, sucking wind, that is going to benefit Miami as the game wears on, especially playing down in South Florida.
Mm-hmm. It's supposed to be close to 90, humid. I think rain's been taken out of the forecast, or there's like a 20% chance there. In the chat, they're talking about Nick Needham, and I want to capitalize on that. Is Josh Boyer said that Needham being taken out, he compared it to baseball, where you put in a left-handed pitcher to go up against a left-handed hitter. It's just an in-game adjustment. And he said, so I'm paraphrasing, but he said something along those lines. I'm not concerned with Needham. I think his best place is in the slot. I actually hope they begin this game with Cater Kohu as starting cornerback opposite Xavier Howard, and put Nick Needham in the slot. Let's just go with that from the beginning. Let's see how far we can take this with Cater Kohu, because when Byron Jones comes back, man, you're going to have X and Byron at cornerback, Nick Needham in the slot. Cater Kohu may not even, he's going to be struggling to even get on the field. He's going to be in the Noah Igbenogany role.
Yeah, it's going to be kind of like what Eric Rowe and Brandon Jones are battling out in the secondary now. You may see Kohu battling Needham in the slot, and it may be a situational start for that nickel position, because if they're facing a team with a speedier slot receiver, you may see Cater out there. If they're facing a team with a little bit bigger, slower slot receiver, you may see Nick Needham out there. If you're facing the Patriots with Devontae Parker, you may see an extra linebacker out there. You just never know.
Right. And in the chat, I don't know why y'all are talking about Solomon Kindley and where is he right now? I know where he is. eating. That's so I don't know, Cracker Barrel, I'd say. That's about it. Hey, best of luck to Solomon out there. I am a little surprised he hasn't gotten picked up by somebody though. So,
Now,
anyway.
Kat, speaking of the offensive line, Greg Little looked the part last week. Do you think we're going to potentially have Austin Jackson come back as a backup that lost his job when he comes back?
I hope so. I mean, I don't wish injury on anybody. I have to be honest that when Austin Jackson went down, I said I don't think he's ever going to be back in the starting lineup because Greg Little. I mean, look, it's a small body of work. We're talking about a game and a half of regular season and some preseason games. But when I watch him play, I mean, he hasn't. I mean, how many times have you looked at a play and said that drive was ruined because of Greg Little? Never. It hasn't happened yet. Austin Jackson, I mean, it's a miracle if he doesn't ruin a drive and a half. I mean,
yeah, well, I mean, let's face it, Austin Jackson will get his job back by the end of the year because Greg Little's bones are hollow like a bird's. But until until Greg Little goes down, I think it should be his job at this point.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. And it'd be interesting to see if Armstead doesn't play, and I expect him to play. Little probably kicks over to left tackle, and I'm thinking Robert Hunt kicks out to right tackle, and you get Robert Jones in the lineup. That would be my guess on that. Liam Eichenberg is by far the weakest player on this Dolphins offensive line. Maybe Austin Jackson kicks over and starts challenging Eichenberg for that role if he doesn't improve.
The nice thing there, though, too, is while Eichenberg does need to improve on Jalen Waddle's short area touchdown, Eichenberg absolutely went out and cleaned out the defense to open that lane for Waddle to waddle his way into the end zone there. So, I mean, even being the weakest link on this line now is no longer you ruined the entire game. It's like, oh, you had these good plays, even if you didn't do great on others. And Eichenberg should look a little bit better this week with Ed Oliver and Jordan Phillips not in this game.
Yeah, I was really worried about on passing downs, seeing Jordan Phillips going one-on-one with Liam Eichenberg because you know how big Phillips is. He's 6'6", 360 or whatever he is, and he can just take somebody like Eichenberg and shove him back. I mean, a lot of people can. He's got to improve. I'm not.
He wouldn't have been able to shove back as well as Jordan Kinley or Solomon Kinley.
That's true. And then Solomon Kinley on the next play, if we did a stretch run, stretch zone play, then he would have taken 2 steps and fallen down because of durability issues. So
he didn't have durability issues.
He
had mobility issues, but not durability issues.
I guess he didn't. I guess he never left the game, I guess.
Yeah.
But you think he would. Anyway,
No.
Best of luck to Solomon Kinley out there.
I'm still a Solomon Kinley fan.
Why he hasn't been picked up by somebody. Oh.
That
bandwagon's pretty small right now.
A couple of guys we haven't talked about yet are Mike Gesicki and Alec Ingold in this one. And the possibility that we may see the debut of Tanner Connor with Hunter Long and Ethan Carter both at home washing their tights.
Yep. Tanner Connor played 1 snap on offense last week. It may have been the kneel down play. I'm not sure, but Hunter Long and Carter, yeah, they're going to be out. That's really all that should be out for the Dolphins, unless we get bad news about X or Teron Armstead. But Josh Allen, his last 6.5 games against the Dolphins. I don't count the second half of the 2020 game because Matt Barkley played. 112.1 quarterback rating, 19 touchdowns, 3 interceptions, also 3 more rushing touchdowns, averaging 45 rushing yards a game as well. 34.2 points per game. 35.4 points per game in his last 6.5 games against the Dolphins. Here's the unfortunate thing is that if you sit back and let Josh Allen deal and you drop a lot of players back into the secondary, he's probably going to carve you up. If you try to blitz him, he's even better. So yeah, I don't know, Paul. What do you think the strategy should be for the Dolphins defensively?
I steer the conversation to Alec Ingold and Mike Gesicki. Kat answers with Josh Allen's awesome.
Oh, sorry. I
started with, hey, we haven't talked about them yet, and you're like, no, we're still not gonna.
No, sorry. Yeah, I just blanked. I just blanked for a second. I realized there was a point I should have brought up earlier in the show with when it came to Josh Allen. But your guys first.
Yes. Let's talk about fullbacks and tight ends, baby. Let's go.
If you look back, and it'll be fascinating to see if Mike Gesicki or Durham Smythe get more snaps in this game, because Smythe, in this offense should be getting more snaps. But last week, out of 71 offensive plays, Gesicki had 44, and Smythe, I think, had 35 or a few less than that. But the thing is, should the Dolphins come out and play offensively like they're down 21 points again, because you're going to have to score on just about every possession. I think so too. And at that point, I think Gesicki needs to be out on the field a lot.
He does. And Gesicki, like I said last week, if he does just what he did last week, every game, that is 100% worth the $10 or $11 million. He's going to draw coverage. He's going to make ridiculous catches, and he's going to get first downs and extend drives. And if he does that, and Durham Smythe does what he's been doing the first 2 weeks, they are very great supplemental weapons that force the safeties to help out in the middle of the field in a lot of cases, which forces some of that one-on-one coverage on the boundary to Tyreek and Jalen Waddle. What they do impacts everything in this game. And then it's also going to force some linebacker help, which is going to open the middle of the field for the run game for guys like Chase Edmonds and Raheem Mostert, as well as open some of the stuff to the boundary for them. They're very complementary as you circle around the skill positions on this offense.
That's well said. And Alec Ingold, I've got to confess, a couple of days ago, I saw a cut up of all the blocks that he made out in the space. It was amazing how the Dolphins used him. I got halfway through that video and I was like, oh no, what am I doing?
Yeah,
I'm watching fullback.
That's watching fullback highlights. My season is already complete.
That's how you know something special is going on here. But yeah, it's what it comes down to is can the Dolphins and Tua, can they outduel Josh Allen? And that's what everything's going to come back to. And the receivers the Dolphins have should be getting open against any team in the league, and especially against this battered secondary here. The matchup that does worry me, especially if Armstead doesn't play, the Bills are really good at rotating their defensive ends. And Greg Russo, AJ Epinesa, Boogie Basham, and former Dolphin and former Bill, Shaq Lawson. And Von Miller is also in the mix too. If you look at their snap count here last week, all of them got between 26 and 29 snaps. So they rotate these guys a lot to keep them fresh. And Armstead and Little need to be up to the challenge, because if they can get pressure with their four, that changes things a lot.
Yeah, and I'm giggling in my head because it sounded like when you started watching Alec Ingold footage, you reacted as if you suddenly discovered you were watching a snuff film. But it's agreed. The Bills defensive ends are a very scary group, and it'll be interesting to see if they play Boogie on the interior a little bit more this week, given some of the injuries along the defensive tackle position that we've already talked about. With that said, Alec Ingold is also a difference maker in that area. The misdirection plays that make defensive ends hesitate, that Mike McDaniel is famous for. But Alec Ingold may end up chipping and stonewalling some of these defensive ends to help the offensive tackles out, whether Teron Armstead plays or not in this game. And if they can start throwing shots at the defensive ends in this game, they're really going to set the table here for Tua and Miami to tear them apart in the passing game. I also saw another metric this week. I think it was from Next Gen Stats, where Tua is one of the fastest quarterbacks in the ball in the NFL as far as release speed goes, which I didn't really fully realize, which also helps against those defensive ends if you can just give him that little bit of time, given the fact he's quick to get the ball out, given the fact that Tyreek and Waddle are quick in their routes. At the end of the day, the quick release, all of that adds up. The hesitations that McDaniel throws against defenses because they have to think, they have to read the play, all add up to the recipe for success for this Dolphins offense.
I would like offensively for the Dolphins as well. That long run by Chase Edmonds last week, kind of a draw play. when everyone was focusing on the receivers. I'd like to see a lot more of that.
Yeah.
I mean, I like the running, not the running game in general, because the running backs really haven't gotten off the ground yet, but the plays that are being run, I like. I just want to see a little bit more of that kind of draw play, especially against this Bills defensive line that's missing Ed Oliver and Jordan Phillips. But yeah, I mean, we'll see what happens. And I've got to say that I've been a nervous wreck for the last two games, the Patriots game and the Ravens game, because the Dolphins had to start the season 2-2, and they're there. Now I'm going to enjoy the heck out of tomorrow's game. You know, really the next next 5 days here where the Dolphins have two games. So Paul, let's get to predictions here. I'm going to throw it to you first.
I think that this is going to be a bit of a shootout. I think the Dolphins defense is going to be a little more stout this week after last weekend. But at the end of the day, I still think the Bills put up 30 plus points. And fortunately, I think Tua and the Dolphins offense put up a little bit more in this one. I think the deficiencies on defense for the Bills this week hurt them and put Miami in a position where there will still be questions after the game as far as who's the better overall team. But Miami can pull ahead in this one for right now, go to 3-0 in the NFL and the AFC, you name it. And I think Miami pulls this one out 42-33 in this game. I think it's a shootout. I think it's another fun one. I think there's going to be some nail-biting moments. But again, I think the McDaniel scheme, the Dolphins' weapons, and the Bills' injuries on defense, as well as the defense needing kind of a comeback game in this one, really sets that recipe up for Miami to make a statement tomorrow and basically tell the NFL, like, hey, you put us at 5 on the power rankings and you put us too low.
Right. I mean, they started the year power rankings, some as low as the 20s. And now USA Today, 5th, Pro Football Talk, 6th, CBS, 8th, NFL.com, 8th. Yeah, I mean, it's good stuff. And you bet if they win tomorrow, you're going to see them in the top 3 and just about everywhere, if not number 1. And King Short in the chat said, Andrew Van Ginkel and Jalen Phillips really need to step up. You bet, because the Dolphins pass rush has not been there in the first 2 games. Now, I understand a little bit why it wasn't last week, because they had to use containment against Lamar Jackson. But even when he dropped back, there just wasn't anything there. I expect that to change as the weeks go along here, and it's got to change. You know, as far as my predictions goes, I've got to go 38-31 Bills.
Cat.
No, I'm not. And look, if the Dolphins were playing probably any other opponent this week at home, I'd have the Dolphins winning. I'm not going to. I can't see anything happening in this game where I leave the game thinking, well, that's it. The Dolphins are a bunch of frauds. Those first 2 games meant nothing. No, the Dolphins have the talent this year. These next 2 years, this is the time frame. And if you win this game, this season goes from, oh man, this is cool, it's fun to be a Dolphins fan, to magical. 3-0. You could go 500 the rest of the way and probably make the playoffs. And we would expect them to do better than that at that point. And you take down the Bills, which you haven't done in the last, 8 outings since the Charles Clay drop game. Man, oh man.
Paul, anything else? Drop game. Oh,
yeah. Where Bobby McCain thought there's no way Josh Allen can throw the ball that far. And then he just launched it. And it wasn't like a plain drop, but I mean, Clay had to run up and the ball was low, but he still should have caught it.
He was standing still at that point.
Yeah. He didn't think Allen had that arm either.
You almost got an F-bomb out of me with, he dropped it. Like, it was a completely catchable, wide open ball.
Yep.
And he dropped it.
Yeah, we'll call it a drop. Paul, anything else jump out from chat or jump out for you before tomorrow? We're less than 24 hours away now.
No, I'm absolutely stoked. I mean, I'll be a little bit late watching the game. I know we're gonna be live tomorrow night. But again, it's, on an awesome front, I got new neighbors moving in tomorrow, and I just found out that they're big Dolphin fans from Florida, which is pretty
nice.
So we're slowly taking over New England up here and starting in town here. As it is, one of the guys in chat, his kid plays for me. So
I got none of that going on in St. Louis. I went to get
well, that's
dog
you don't
food.
talk to people. So
Yeah, that's true. But the
when you're the get off my lawn guy, you don't really know what people are into.
I went to get dog food, and the cash out, or the cashier said, saw my Dolphins gear and said, "Oh, we're playing this weekend." So I've run into more Bills fans than I have Dolphins fans this past week. But it's I don't
one
care.
person you talked to was a Bills fan. Okay.
That's right. What are the odds? So well, that's going to do it for our breakdown of the Dolphins Bills matchup here tomorrow. We'll be sure to join you tomorrow night, right around 9 p.m. Central, 10 Eastern, after we've had a chance to take all of this in here. If there are any changes to that, we'll be sure to let you know. I'm Brian Cat NFL on Twitter. Paul is fanatic_pick. Be sure to also check out finfanatic.com as well as the FanSide network as well. And if it's not on the right side and it's not on the left side,